And we're back on BKP. Good morning from the office, North Georgia's only live online morning show. I told you this hour, I'm going to bring personality back, guys.
The real Brian is coming out. Okay.
All right, first of all, new ground rules. Debate's over, okay? And I want to say for our audience out there, nobody knew I was going to ask you to stick around. I got 6 mics. You know, why not? Why waste them? We're trying them out.
And another hour on.
I got another hour, right?
Right.
So why not? But I have to be. I hate to say in fairness because sometimes Congressman Collins did let me know well in advance that there was an appointment he had to make. So I don't want to spend the next hour in a bashing, okay? We can talk. You brought up the issues. Now, first of all, on the debate, when we got to talking this morning before we started, thanks for coming out at 8 a.m. Because at 8 a.m., I mean, sometimes it takes the blood a little longer to get warm. Mr. Scapine, way to go. I'll give you that, okay? Because when we started, I told you guys, I said, I'm going to push some stuff out, and hey, as long as we don't really get rude, jump in. The mics are live. Remember that? Finally, you said.
I finally woke up ready to figure out what was going on here.
And then everybody got in. So I'm sorry about maybe for the slow start, but we did get going. Issues. You guys said issues. We're not talking about the issues. And I hear that often. I don't want to talk about what bathroom to go in. You know, now that's actually, they've gotten down to where that's a presidential. They're talking about that in the president. What bathroom to go in. I don't want to talk about that right now. I want to talk about $19 trillion in debt.
That's right.
What do you say?
Well, we've got to stop it. In fact, I introduced the strongest balanced budget amendment of the Constitution that has been introduced in Congress. We've got to stop spending money that we don't have, and our current congressmen has continued to spend more and more money and create more and more debt. I never voted for an omnibus bill, in spite of what accusations were made today. That was what I voted for, was an amendment to an amendment that was for our troops. And in fact, every single Republican voted for the amendment, except for one who always votes against the military. The bill was actually passed before I ever got to Congress. And I've never voted for an omnibus bill. I've never voted to raise the debt ceiling. We need to lower the debt ceiling. We need to get our economy going, and we need to get jobs. I brought jobs to Georgia. I started the process that brought Caterpillar, and as well as Baxter Pharmaceuticals. I started the process that brought them to Georgia. My jobs bill would create millions and millions of manufacturing jobs all across this country. And in fact, I asked Art Laffer, the famous economist that worked with Ronald Reagan, to look at the bill and ask him to tell me what the economic results would be. And he said, Dr. Brown, your bill is so big there's no economic model to even judge how great our economy would be under your jobs bill. So I've got positive solutions to the problems we face. We've got to stop spending money we don't have, and that's exactly what I fought when I was there. I introduced more targeted spending cuts than any other member of Congress.
Let me go back. Lonnie, we got good volume, everything, all the mics running good. Let me go back. If you just joined us after the first hour, sorry we came back and I didn't do this, just took it for granted. We're here joined this second hour with Dr. Paul Brown, Mr. Mike Scupine, Mr. Fitzpatrick, and General Bernard Fontaine. Am I okay with that?
Bernie's okay.
Is Bernie okay?
Bernie's okay.
Okay.
He's the other Bernie.
The other Bernie.
He's the good Bernie, not the other one, not the socialist Bernie.
You know, Brian, you mentioned the debt, and I believe that is the number one issue that is facing this country. And I don't want to downplay the outside threats from ISIS or any of the other countries that are working for the demise of the United States.
It's our number one national security
It is our number one national security issue. And if we continue on the same road that we're going, there is no end in sight to the spending that we're currently doing.
In fact,
in fact, it's my understanding, Dr. Brown mentioned the debt ceiling. My understanding is the debt ceiling has been suspended until 2017. So the president can spend, Congress can spend an unlimited amount of money between now and 2017. So if we're sitting at almost $20 trillion in debt right now, oh my goodness, what's going to happen in the next year?
Nothing's in the way, is it? The debt ceiling, everything just.
It's Katie bar the door as far as the Congress is concerned right now, and the president. And you go back and you brought up the budget. You know, we didn't, in this country, didn't have a budget till 1921. And the reason that a budget came into existence was because we had people in this nation that wanted to move away from the enumerated powers. They wanted to put things in the budget that were not in the Constitution. So they came up with the concept that if we can have a budget, then we can add anything we want to it and get that approved by Congress, and we can begin to operate and spend money and do things that we want to do to help control the people. That's what the budget was about. It's about controlling the people. It's not about what it should be about, is keeping our spending limited, which is what your budget and my budget does. It limits my spending. No, our budget for the federal government was designed to add things to it that were unconstitutional.
General, you've handled some pretty big budgets.
Yes, I have.
Over what? Over 50,000.
Over 50,000.
I'm trying to wake you up a little.
Okay.
The other night you were
That's
on a
just-
roll over there. I'm trying to get you going.
We're talking the federal government. That's small petty cash. But there's millions and millions of dollars. To go back to the problem, which is correct, that is the biggest problem. And of course, it affects national security, where if we have people die, that's very important. But if we don't have the means to deal with it, then we have the real problem. Now, people will say, oh, it's entitlements. And I say it's both entitlements and fraud, waste, and abuse. I have seen so much of it, it bothers me terribly. And there is a lot of fraud, waste, and abuse in the entitlements. So that's where the problems lie. Now, how did we get there? We started off with, after Ronald Reagan, we've been starting to go downhill. We had a lot of nice guys. We liked these guys. We didn't have what we needed. We had what we liked. And we've been going into a socialist agenda. And the other Bernie thinks that the idea is to just spend ourselves into a crash.
Well,
Could you please quit bringing up the other Bernie?
Yes, sir.
It's too early in the morning. I mean, it is 9:20. I get up early, but I don't even know if there's a part of the day where I'm okay with the other Bernie.
all of these issues didn't start with Reagan and start coming down then. It started, you go back to Wilson and even slightly before, but
Don't say
Wilson is really when all
Don't
this.
say Wilson here, because I know he's the one.
Did you knew-
He's the
you
one
knew
that
so-
signed the Federal
Yeah,
Reserve.
Yes, he
that's right,
did.
yeah.
Yeah, Wilson did, and that's
And the
reason-
16th Amendment
that's
and the
reason-
17th Amendment.
That's the reason Roosevelt ran against Taft, was it?
Yes.
Is to split the vote so Wilson would sign. Don't get me started on that.
Well,
They did that on purpose to split the vote,
Yeah.
because
Right.
is it Taft? He would not sign it. Was it right? He would not sign it, and he refused to sign it. And that's when Roosevelt ran to split that Republican vote, so Wilson would get in and sign it. If I don't, I'm getting sidetracked. So
Brian,
Go ahead.
the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Admiral Mike Mullen, said that the greatest security threat we face as a nation is the debt. But he didn't mention the unfunded liabilities. I've talked to some very smart economists that say that we actually have over $200 trillion worth of unfunded liabilities. It has to stop. And the thing is, if we were operating constitutionally, then I, as a doctor, would be practicing medicine most of the time here in Georgia. I'd go to Washington every now and then to make sure that we have a strong national defense, to make sure that we have a strong economy, that our dollar is strong, that our foreign affairs are in the best interest of this nation. And then coming back home, any member of Congress in the House and the Senate should be a citizen legislator, should have a regular job at home, and just goes to Washington and votes on the enumerated powers that are in this document, the Constitution of the United States. There are only 18 things, issues in Article 1, Section 8, that Congress has constitutional authority to vote on.
Why don't you go into some detail and explain what the unfunded liabilities are? So that
well,
people
let me
will
say,
understand that.
I like what you just said, but let me say something on that. Let me say something on that. Unfunded liabilities. unfunded liabilities, what a lot of people don't understand is your budget only has to show the payment. It does not have to show the liability. So
Right.
what happens, people say, well, wait a minute, what is this? It's like a general obligation bond. These bonds, you don't have to show the actual value of that on the budget. You just have to show the payment. So when you hear people say, well, we're 19 trillion in debt, well, we've got trillions of unfunded liabilities. Am I correct on that?
That's correct. In fact, here in Georgia, we have a balanced budget amendment to our Georgia state constitution, but you're exactly correct, because they don't show bonded indebtedness.
Right.
All they show is the interest paid on the bonds. And actually, Georgia, in spite of having a balanced budget amendment to our constitution that requires members of the General Assembly to stay within a balanced budget, they can continue to create more and more debt. That's the thing about my balanced budget amendment. It would prevent all that, and we have to prevent us from spending money that we don't have, because what we're doing is we're robbing future generations of their future. We're stealing their money. Our great-great-great-grandchildren are going to be paying off this huge debt that Republicans and Democrats alike have built, and it's got to stop. And that's what I fought when I was in Congress, and I'll continue to fight it when I'm the congressman of this district.
Mr. Fitzpatrick, go ahead. You
Well,
guys, don't hesitate. Jump in.
you know, there are examples throughout history of countries who have gone in the socialist direction, and that's basically where we're going, because we've got so many things, the entitlement situation that we're in. You know, and Argentina comes to mind, a vibrant economy, strong country, and then they started moving in a socialist direction, and then you had hyperinflation, where the cost of things just went through the roof and the value of their currency plummeted. And if we don't get things under control, that's exactly what's going to happen to here. Our dollar is going to stop being the reserve of the world, and we're going to lose that status, and then the value of it is just going to plummet, and then costs are going to go sky high. And how are we going to be able to afford $50 loaves of bread?
And
The Chinese are trying to stop the dollar from today.
They are, and
it's
they're
gonna
working
stop.
toward trying to get the yen to be the national reserve currency, and so we have got to make sure that we work toward maintaining the strength of the dollar, but building the strength up, because it's getting weaker and weaker and weaker with each day that goes by.
One of the things I keep going back to the Constitution, because that's got to be our guiding light. And
That's right.
if you go look at the Constitution, you'll see that there's nothing in it that authorizes the Federal Reserve. Congress, through our Treasury, is supposed to be in charge of our money.
That's right.
They're supposed to be doing this job. We are not supposed to have to go out and pay someone else to type on a keyboard, create money, then they charge us interest off of this imaginary thing that they created. That's what's driving our debt. We've got to get rid of the
I wonder
Federal
how many
Reserve.
people actually know that the Federal Reserve, and it's misleading because it's called the Fed, but it has nothing to do with the federal government
That's right.
itself.
Private
Well, a
banking
little
system.
bit.
A little bit.
The only a little bit is that the president anoints the chairman of the Federal
Fed.
Reserve, and
But
that's
he
basically.
doesn't
But it's
pick
but it's right.
He doesn't pick it. He's given candidates
Right.
by the Federal Reserve
Right.
That's right.
that he can choose from.
Yeah.
And it's actually the bankers that own the Federal Reserve.
Absolutely.
That's the
Everybody-
reason I introduced a bill to get rid of the Federal Reserve.
We got a problem with the
Totally.
whole world. Now, I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back to Alan Greenspan. We got a problem when the whole world waited to see what Greenspan would say at a table for 30 seconds to see if we can move forward with our economy. Go ahead, General.
I listen with interest while the rest of you talk. And that's because I was a political science professor, and I would like to have this tape to use in the classroom because it's right on the money. The Federal Reserve is a sundry of the federal government. It is part of it, but it isn't. And you know the problems with that. But we need to get back to, there's a big difference between what is and what ought to be. And what is we have a mess. We know what ought to be because we've read the Constitution. We have to deal with what is right now, and I think that's the focus.
I write that down. Is and ought to be. I know.
Yeah, that's a philosopher that I borrowed from. It's an old friend of mine, an Italian friend of mine named Niccolo.
like that.
Well, we've got to get rid of the Federal Reserve. In fact, I introduced 3 bills in the last Congress. One, to have a full, open, transparent audit of the Federal Reserve.
Would you give it back to the states? Would you give financial responsibility back to
No,
the states?
No,
it is
in fact,
Congress's
it's-
responsibility to coin money. That is according to the
Exactly.
Constitution. It is Congress's responsibility.
And to
You know,
regulate the value
and
of
it was
it as
all
well.
based on the gold standard, which we were under until President Nixon took us off of the gold standard in the 1970s. So we have got to get back to getting rid of the Federal Reserve, and then Congress reassuming their constitutional authority, put us back on the gold standard, and so
Introduce
that
the bill
our
to do that,
dollar
too.
is actually backed by something instead of just thin air.
Let's take a brief break. Let's take a break. And folks, I'm BKP. Good morning from the office, North Georgia's only live online morning show. And you're watching a panel show. This is what we really want to start doing at FetcherNews.com. I would love to do these a couple times a month. 5 days a week, maybe, for me. Hey, I'm not going to change now.
It'll raise your ratings, won't it?
Yeah, I like.
Tell you what, let's do it closer to Cleveland next time.
We're on location. It's a traveling panel show, but we want to do more of these. So we're going to take a brief break. When we come back, we talk to these gentlemen about maybe some of the departments, Department of, and Department of, right after these messages.
What you gonna do with all that junk?
North Georgia Diamond is your source for diamonds. Come on in to view the area's largest selection of fine jewelry at North Georgia Diamond. All repairs and designs are done on site by our jewelers. And North Georgia Diamond has the lowest prices on loose diamonds. You can also sell your gold, silver, and coins at North Georgia Diamond between Walmart and Lowe's in East LJ. Locally owned by Bill and Allison Craig, North Georgia Diamond is your source for diamonds in North Georgia.
Better days ahead. Truck Month is back at your new Days Chevrolet in Jasper with savings up to $8,000 off MSRP. Right now, get a roomy new Chevy Equinox for just $23,200, or get Days max discount on a new Silverado Crew Cab, just $31,900, plus instant easy credit with Days Fast Track Credit Center. But these Truck Month savings won't last long. Get to Days Chevrolet in Jasper, where Chevy cars and trucks cost less.
Better days ahead, Days Chevrolet.
Find new roads.
Hi, I'm Rhonda the Mattress Lady, and this is my husband, Gary, owners of Mattress Overstocked in LJ next to Walmart. And we want to earn your business. From the time you walk in our door to the time we deliver your new mattress to your door, you will see the difference. Our selection and prices are the best in North Georgia, and customer service is our top priority. So y'all come on in and let us help you find the right mattress at the right price. That's Mattress Overstocked in LJ next to Walmart.
Only Pizza Hut delivers 2 medium pizzas any way you want for just $6.99 each. Get any quality toppings, any crust, and any 2 freshly made medium pizzas. Get your favorite high-quality specialties like meat lovers or backyard barbecue chicken, just $6.99 each. Only at Pizza Hut.
Save big on service at Schadenkerk. Get a full-service oil change for only $29.99. That's right. Get an oil and filter change, tire rotation, brake check, AC check, and multi-point inspection, all for just $29.99.
Give us a shot at Schadenkerk.
Get the $29.99 oil change special at Schadenkerk Ford. or any of our convenient locations in the heart of Georgia.
As Bentley says, give us a shot at Shottenkirk.
Online at ShottenkirkAtlanta.com.
I'm Sheriff Dane Kirby, and I'll stand up for you.
I'm Stacy Nicholson, Sheriff of Gilmer County, and I will stand up for you.
Stand up and speak out. No matter how rich, cool, talented you believe yourself to be, how you treat people ultimately tells all. I am Allison Sosby, District Attorney, and I'll stand up for you.
In 2015, our Gilmer County Probate Court heard over 1,300 criminal cases, 250 estate and guardianship matters, and probated or administered 110 plus wills. Those are very serious issues. And experience matters. You know, we talked about the fact that every county with more than 96,000 people has a licensed attorney as their probate judge. The state requires it. They don't hear different cases. They don't hear different matters. And I don't believe that the due process you receive when you go to the probate court should be based off the county you live in. You want to have a judge who's been there, who's been on the other side of the bench, who's argued that, who knows it, and who can help you. Because compassion isn't always just about being able to listen, but it's being able to do something when you do listen. Experience matters, and I will use my experience in my private practice, in the U.S. Attorney's Office, and in 2 judges' chambers for the people of Gilmer County.
El Rey and Ellijay.
El Rey Mexican Restaurant.
Family owned and operated, and a local favorite for families, parties, and meetings.
Great prices.
Friendly service and delicious Mexican cuisine.
Patio dining available.
Come sing in Carlos's Cantina every Friday 9 to 1.
Eat in or take away.
Same location for 14 years. Open 7 days at the corner of Maddox Drive and 515. North Georgia's favorite Mexican cuisine. El Rey and Ellijay.
Shottenkirk Ford in Jasper. Highway 515 South, Jasper. ShottenkirkFordJasper.com.
What you gonna do with all that junk?
From the office, North Georgia's only live online morning show. And yes, Lonnie is here. I know you haven't had an opportunity to hear me ask Lonnie if everything's going well. Lonnie, is everything going well? Lonnie shook his head no, so can't help it. But yes, Lonnie is here, and I want to thank Lonnie. Just a real quick note, this is the first time we used our new soundboard, all of our new equipment, all of our new mics, and Lonnie's done an outstanding job here this morning. I'm here with Dr. Paul Brown, Mr. Scapede, Mr. Fitzpatrick, and General Bernie Fontaine. Mr. Fitzpatrick, you have 32 years in teaching and administration, okay?
True.
32 years you've spent in teaching and administration.
And still at it.
Still at it today. My question to you is, we hear get rid of, get rid of, get rid of. Should we, can we, and how do we get rid of the Department of Education? So can we? Should we?
Yes, we can, and yes, we should.
How do we do it?
Well, the process...
Because I'm going to tell you, before we go any further, if you guys want to jump in, what kind of bothers me is when everybody says, get rid of this, get rid of this. Let's talk about get rid of. So go ahead, sir.
You have to go back to the enumerated powers that is given to the federal government by the Constitution, and education is not one of those. So there never should have been a Department of Education in the federal government. It has now become very entrenched. Every public school system in the country is beholden to the Department of Education, to the federal government with funding. And so it would be detrimental to simply cut it off at the roots, because where would the local school systems come up with the money? It would come from the local taxpayers. Now, and I would love to be able to just in one fell swoop do away with the Department of Education, but when reality is the local taxpayers don't need to have a huge increase in their tax values in order to cover up for the district. So what we've got to do is we have got to have a plan to phase out over a period of time so that it is not so detrimental to the local taxpayers or to the states to be able, and I understand it's, you cut out a cancer, you get it all at one time, and that's the way you need to do it. But in reality, I don't know that that can be done.
But
Now,
would
if we
we
could phase
phase
it
it
over,
out?
if we could do it over, say, a 5-year period.
But make it to where the next president
can't
reverse it.
Absolutely,
But
absolutely.
phase it out.
And
And it would take about 5 years, you would think?
I think that would be very realistic to say. I think it's very realistic, but it
Mrs.
doesn't.
Capeen, you can get it. Go ahead.
Yeah, first off, I think we need to ask the very basic question. I agree with Roger, it's unconstitutional, but what have we gotten for our money that has gone into the Department of Education? What have they done for us? Ever since they existed, our schools have gone down. Now, as you cut out the Department of Education, you cut the taxes that fund that. If we're getting our money from up there, let's cut the taxes so the federal government is not taking it from the people up there to start with. Right. Leave it here to go back into the state schools. So it's not that big a deal to eliminate the thing. Probably it would have to be done over time, because if you just cut it out overnight, you've got all those
The burden
jobs.
locally and everything like that would be.
So you do have to phase it out, but the money is there because we're getting it anyway. We just don't need to send it to Washington first. It needs to stay here.
But the money's not there. I mean, we're $20 trillion in debt already.
I
The money's
kind of
not
like
there.
that. We keep talking like there is money somewhere,
No,
but we don't have
the
it.
money's not there.
Okay.
And so, and I agree. I wish, and if we were to go to something, a different tax system, like the fair tax, do away with the IRS, that's another department that needs to be done away with, and that amendment needs to be repealed. But if we were to go to that, and then we were to pool the money in Washington, in Atlanta, from all of the taxes that are collected in Georgia, and then Atlanta sends the money to the Treasury for what the federal government needs to operate on. So we could do it like that. Keep the money in Georgia and send to Washington only what Washington deserves. We could do it like that.
Go ahead, Dr. Brown.
We need to get rid of the Department of Education. What we have seen is Republicans and Democrats alike have expanded the Department of Education. In fact, George W. Bush, when he was first running as governor, he said, we don't need to get rid of the Department of Education, we need to fix it, which means pour more money into it. And we've seen Republicans
that
as
just
well.
made me cringe. I'm
Well,
sorry.
Republicans and
that was-
Democrats have continued to grow the Department of Education. And in fact, in this omnibus bill, they funded the Department of Education fully. But not only that, but there was a bill last year called Every Student Succeeds Act, ESSA, as I pronounce it, that reauthorized No Child Left Behind. I call No Child Left Behind No Teacher Left Unshackled. We've got to get the shackles off the teachers and let them teach. But they reauthorized, and Doug Collins voted for it. He says he wants to get rid of Common Core, but he voted to reauthorize Common Core and No Child Left Behind. But the thing is, back to your regular, and then they funded it through the omnibus bill, but I wrote a bill to totally get rid of the Department of Education. It was hard to write because the Department of Education has tentacles into a lot of areas of the federal government. And we need to leave the money here so that we can educate our students here and not have some federal bureaucrat up in Washington, D.C. telling teachers in a classroom here in Northeast Georgia how to teach. So we can do that, but the problem with phasing it out, one Congress cannot obligate the next Congress to anything. So if we have a good president, if we have a good Congress, then the next Congress can totally undo it.
How do we make, if something like that takes 5 years, how do we make it ironclad?
The only way you can is just totally get rid of it. And in fact, I voted against the Ryan budgets because they wouldn't balance for 25 or 26 years. And that's just a charade. And that's what the kind of
I'm
charade.
getting to the point in life when they keep telling me a bill will balance out in, 2042. I'm thinking, I'm looking at
I'm
my
not
birth
sure I'll be
certificate.
around then.
Yeah, I'm thinking 20.
It won't do it though. That's the thing.
Go ahead, General.
Okay, I've listened long enough. It's my turn. The real problem, the immediate problem, I agree with Roger that it needs to be done over a period of time and done carefully so it doesn't hurt a lot of innocent people. But what is a real problem right now, and I can say that Congress has a great deal to do with it, is statutory law. Because the laws are passed and then they're turned over to the bureaucracy to come up with the implementing of the law. And they put stuff in there that, builds up like this in the Federal Register. Now, do you read the Federal Register? I don't know anybody that does. That's cruel and unusual punishment. So okay? It is. And that's what we have, a culture of contempt, I call it. If you talk about the culture of corruption, well, there's some of that, but there's also a culture of contempt. These bureaucrats feel that it is their mission in life to give the people that pay their salaries a hard time. And I think every citizen understands what I'm speaking of here. So that needs to be addressed, and I think it could be addressed immediately in the Congress by putting some people to work, a few young lawyers to go, do we need this regulation? Why do we have so many regulations? Why does it take?
Are you advocating another department?
No, I'm taking.
No, that's what it sounds like.
Let me ask this question, because we're talking about departments, and I've got one more major subject, then I want to do a quick lightning round of yes or no. The guy the other night when we were there, I had a yellow card and a red card, and Paul looked at me and I started yes or no, and he said, "You didn't give me a yes or no card." He just gave me yellow and red, but
You just need to hold up the red when you have a yes or no.
Let me ask this. Now, let me put this out this. I, for one, do not want to end the EPA. Now, hear me out.
I do. I want to get rid of it totally. Let the state do that.
Okay, well, wait, no, wait a minute. I had to bring this up with only a couple of minutes left. I, for one, hear me out. I, for one, do not want to end the EPA totally. Now, I don't like government in my life, but I like clean water, okay? I do not think the government needs to continue to take land. Okay, that's a subject in itself. Fellas, I'll come back and talk about these. So as far as the government taking land and so on and so forth, and the overreach and what has happened to the coal industry, all that list. But I do think there should be some oversight on our drinking water, because when you say the state, now, I like what you said earlier, all of you said in one way or the other, if the rain falls on Georgia, it belongs to Georgia.
That's right, it does.
But if Georgia has a passageway that leads somewhere else, it could cross state lines. Go ahead, Mr. Scott.
Here's what I would like to see, taking what you're talking about, and I understand where you're coming from. Let's let the states come back and join together and set up their own consortium that monitors things like you're talking about. But the states are directly in charge of it themselves. Yep. It doesn't run through the federal government. It's every state contributing to that, whatever it might turn out to be, that consortium, so that our air is monitored, our waters are monitored, and if things need to be changed, it comes back and says, okay, Mississippi, Alabama,
yes,
Georgia.
Brian, yes.
Listen,
there's a mechanism already in place to be able to protect the water and the air and everything else that's within the state of Georgia or the state of Alabama or whatever else. See, but the fundamental issue is this. Do you believe in the rule of law? And the question has to be, yes, we do. And the rule of law is the Constitution of the United States of America.
Should be. That's right.
Well, it is. But what we've gotten into is we've moved way toward the rule of man, where we don't obey the rule of law anymore, and we go to whatever man wants to do, regardless of what the law says. And the rule of law says that the EPA is not authorized to exist according to the Constitution of the United States of America, and that responsibility falls to the state to be able to make sure that all of the air, the water, and everything else is protected by the state Environmental Protection Department.
All right.
In fact, Brian, in God's inerrant word, the Holy Bible, it says we've got to be good stewards of His creation. And it's imperative that we follow the directions that God gives us in I call it the manufacturer's handbook, and its instructions of how we should run all of our lives, including public policy and our political lives. He says we have to be good stewards. He created the heavens and earth, and we are put here on this earth to tend it and keep it the way it should be. Constitutionally, there is no authority for the federal government to have an EPA. And in the Bush administration, as well as in this administration, even more so, they've just not only doubled down, but tripled and quadrupled down on what started under the Bush administration to try to stop a lot of energy production, particularly through coal. Now, we have a better environment today. It's not because of the EPA, because the EPA has basically become a bureaucracy of socialism that's geared towards trying to shut down our economy, and that's exactly what Barack Obama has tried to do. So we need to get rid of the EPA altogether. Let the states do the things that it's supposed to. The 10th Amendment of the Constitution says any power not specifically given to the federal government by the Constitution, those are the enumerated powers, not only for Congress in Article 1, Section 8, the 18 things that Congress has the authority to do, but the president's powers are enumerated and are very limited. And the court's powers are enumerated and very limited. But the thing is, all three branches are acting outside of that. And Roger's exactly correct. None of the branches of the federal government and neither party are operating constitutionally.
Yeah,
That's what I fought when I was in Washington, to go back to constitutional limited government.
Every time we have a problem that develops in our country, the first thing we all do is we turn to the federal government to solve it.
Now, I want to be clear. I want to get my position clear. I don't like the EPA. I support coal. I highly support coal. We can get into that, okay?
Amen. I do too.
I support coal. Support my friends.
And fossil fuels, all of them.
I support my friends in Kentucky, West Virginia, and I know there's a lot of other states that produce coal, Virginia. But the EPA, I'm not finding anything really good in them right now. But the clean water, how do we do the handful of things that really we should make sure are secure for the future?
The states can.
The states
It's
can
my
do
turn.
that. Go ahead, Joe.
Okay, it's your turn.
Go ahead, Joe.
What they're talking about here, to sum it up, is federalism, bringing it back down to the states and let the states handle it. I can tell you from the EPA standpoint that you're talking about, there's the EPD in Georgia, and, they do everything that needs to be done. Maybe they do a little more than needs to be done sometimes.
They do.
But when they do, and here's the tenet of political science, is that the closer the government is to the people, the more responsive it'll be. Because, I can't get a hold of him, but I can get a hold of him. He's here where I am. And that's what we need to go back to. As Roger says, or maybe it was Mike, we have a tendency to try to slough it off on Washington and complain about Washington. And, like my motto is, don't complain. There's a lot of complaining.
Go ahead.
Well, and it goes back to also the unalienable rights that we have: life, liberty, pursuit of happiness through the ownership of property, and so on and so forth. How much liberty do you want to be able to live your life? And so that is the fundamental right that we have, to be able to live our lives in liberty, not to the exclusion of everybody else's liberty. So there are limits to it. But the federal government in general, when left alone, will grow and grow and grow and will encroach on your liberties to be able to live your life the way that you want to live it. And we have got to make sure that we have a government at every level local, state, and federal, a government at every level that is going to respect your inalienable rights. In fact, the Declaration goes on and says that the purpose of government is to secure those rights, not to take them away.
I got 8 minutes I want to change because there is one thing I want to get out. You're sitting here today and we're a small business. I'm a small business. We're family owned, operated. You guys know us. My wife works one end of the business, I work the other. Small Business USA. Most of my friends, all small business. Okay?
It's the backbone of this country.
Backbone of this country. What do you think about these, corporations? Hey, you know what? We have laws that allow them to be corporations and they get bigger and bigger. But small business, what are we going to do in this country to bring back small business or support small business or get the shackles off small business to flourish? We got about 7 minutes. Everybody can have a couple minutes.
Brian, my Jobs Act would help small business as well as all business. And we've got to open up the marketplace. You see a free-flowing marketplace, unencumbered by government taxes and regulations, is the best way to ensure the best quality, quantity, and cost of all goods and services. Healthcare, my business, I'm a doctor. My Patient Option Act is the only Republican bill that opens up the marketplace. My jobs bill would take your tax burden off of you as a corporation, totally, because corporate taxes are nothing but pass-through. The consumers pay corporate taxes, not the corporation. And it would also allow you just bought your new soundboard, you just bought these new microphones. You should be able to immediately write those things off on your taxes until we go to national retail sales tax. You should be able to write those off on your taxes.
To invest in equipment to grow a business.
And you write the check, you should be able to write it off. And that's what my jobs bill will do. It will create millions of new manufacturing jobs. It will create an economy so strong that Art Laffer told me there's no economic model that will even begin to judge or project how big our economy would be under my jobs bill. But that's what we've got to get, the regulatory burden and tax burden off of small business, and that's what I fought for when I was a congressman.
There's another aspect of this thing, and that is what is going on with corporate America today. And what we're seeing is this tremendous consolidation of smaller business into the corporations. And I think that the ultimate goal is to drive out small business. Now, and typically, I am not all that for regulations, but we do not need banks that are too big to fail.
Right.
We do not need one communications company in America.
Right. Like Windstream.
In
one area.
We need our antitrust laws that used to break these companies up to keep them from getting so large that they were detrimental to the nation and to the economy. And that's where we're moving now. And because we've gotten completely away from that, we don't even enforce antitrust laws anymore.
Real quick.
Well, we've got to get rid of all the regulations, and that goes back to EPA, all the departments in the government that are telling you how you're supposed to run your business. And so if we can get rid of regulations and get rid of tax burdens, I'm a firm supporter in the fair tax. And if we were to get rid of the income tax, and therefore the IRS, and have a fair tax where it was based on consumption, where I get 100% of my check, you get 100% of your check, and then you choose what you want to spend your money on. We get rid of all the corporate taxes, and how many corporations are going to come back to this country, and it's going to grow exponentially the economy, so that we're going to be able to pay down that $19-20 trillion in debt that we have. And small businesses are going to be able to flourish under that atmosphere.
I've got 4 minutes, and there's two things I want to do before we close today.
Quickly, it's the regulatory laws that I'm talking about here that he was just mentioning. And the other half is what was mentioned earlier, is we need to bring companies back here, eliminate that corporate taxes, and provide the incentives to move the companies back, because everybody here that's unemployed, it's a double whammy. We're paying unemployment, we're paying entitlements, and we are not getting the income tax from their wages. So it's a double whammy. When it moves back, I heard the word exponentially growing, that will bring it back. We started going down that tube with the North American Free Trade Agreement. I never could understand when I was teaching political science how making Oldsmobiles in Mexico was going to help people in Detroit.
Okay, now, I'm not doing a Grover Norquist, I'm not doing a Grover Norquist pledge, okay? I'm not doing that this morning, but this is the end of the show, so this is real quick. So this is for my good friend out there. This is just a quick yes or no. If you're elected and you go to Washington, will you be a Colonel Oscar Poole, Joe McCutcheon, small business champion?
Well, Joe McCutcheon's already declared me a small business champion and a champion for the taxpayer. And all you have to do is look at my
I had
records.
two, so you'll be you will make the Joe McCutcheon, Colonel Oscar Poole, small business champion.
Well,
will you be a Colonel Oscar Poole? Will you make that?
Most definitely.
That's the commitment. That's our Grover Norquist commitment. Will you make our commitment?
Absolutely. Where do I sign?
Yeah, where do you sign? Will you make our commitment?
Yes.
And also, will you be a Joe McCutcheon taxpayer champion?
You got that right.
Got that right?
I already am.
Already.
Do I support motherhood? Of course we do.
Okay.
Brian, I am so glad to hear that all three of these guys support my jobs bill and support my.
Oh, call it now.
I didn't hear that.
Because
They were all blustering now.
They were all saying what my jobs bill does. I've already got those positive solutions.
No closing statements. There's no closing statements today. Hey, I've really enjoyed this hour, and you've been watching our second hour here with Dr. Brown, Mike Scupine, Mr. Fitzpatrick, and General Fontaine. First of all, these are candidates for the 9th Congressional District here in Georgia, but they stuck around the second hour, and we wanted to just talk subjects out here as far as issues and have a little bit of a panel time, and I've really enjoyed it. So you've watched. If you would like to be a part of a panel, we're going to start panel shows and get in these discussions about the Federal Reserve, the Constitution, list goes on if you'd like to get in these discussions, because there's so many things we didn't touch as far as immigration, illegal immigration, drugs, so many things out there. We would like to have you a part of what we have coming up on panel shows. Get in touch with us, 706-889-9700, 706-889-9700, or send me an email, chief@fetchernews.com. And don't forget out there, hey, send me a note, let me know what you thought of today's programming. Don't forget, stay with us, because right after these commercials, Kevin Hensley with the Morning Report, North Georgia's only live online morning newscast with Kevin Hensley right after these messages. I've enjoyed it today. We're going to get these guys back. We're going to do more panel shows. I don't even want to leave because I'm talking politics, and you know me. I'm your host, BKP. Gentlemen, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Brian.
And vote for Paul Brown to be your congressman. PaulBrown.com. BROUN.
Vote for somebody. Lonnie, take us out of here.